going to be our presenter, so let's move to the next person. So she's giving a presentation. Right.
The next person at one time was a member of this board also, Mr. Toba LaCrown.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I want to say Happy New Year for several of us who are meeting for the first time. As it was announced to you, my name is Toba LaCrown. I'm here to speak on behalf of the men and women in green. You can see the uniform that I'm putting on. So I just want to let us know that we do exist. We are called SAT, which is Community Emergency Response Team. The best way to describe to somebody is that we're the first responder of the first responder. We all know the first responders as police, fire, EMT, and all those people. But we are actually on the ground before those people. And also, we are attached to every community board. So we're not just a team from nowhere. We're a team of this board, SAT Team 12. That is our name. If there is no board 12, we won't be here. So this evening, I want to introduce us to SAT. Some of my people, you can see them standing. They will be able to give you the flyers. We need more people to join us to do the work. We also need more hands. What do? To become a certified SAT member, you have to go through training. And it involves fire, NYPD, EMT, Red Cross, transit. You go through these trainings, then you come back to the community to give your service. I always tell the people, even though it's a volunteer assignment, by you volunteering to be trained, you have the knowledge first before you go to the community. So I want to implore us to join this organization. What do? Sometimes in a place like this, our assignment is to control the crowd. Even though we don't have the power to arrest, but we will talk to you as one-on-one to make sure everything is calm. Other things that we do, we go to the community to speak and train people, make presentation about emergency awareness. Nobody asked for emergency to come. That's why they call it emergency. But there are things you can do to prepare yourself against emergency. That is our assignment. So I want to appeal to us in our churches, block associations, invite us. We'll be able to make presentation, and then we also ask you to join us. Thank you very much, and God bless.
So Mr. LaCrown has challenged us, and so I asked, again, not only board members, but members of the community to accept his challenge, as well as accept mine, but accept his challenge and join the organization. They do some excellent work, and so I ask that you consider that. They're passing out the flyers, so I ask that you consider that, and if you have the time, please give of your time.
The next person was also a member at one time of this community board, Ms. Pam Johnson.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Happy New Year, happy 2020. My name is Pamela Hamilton Johnson. I'm the president of the 47th Precinct Community Council. And the next meeting that we're having is going to be on February 12th, and it's going to be at 7:30 at PS 19. I have flyers, I can give it out as well. But I'm asking you to come because this is one of those meetings where you really need to be. It's about criminal justice reform. And as a president, I've gotten questions as to whether if people get arrested, are they going to let them back out on the streets? And we know that some low-level arrest, they will be released. And so I've got seniors who are coming to me who are afraid because if they've been robbed, they're afraid that they're going to get robbed again. So this meeting, Carl Hasty, he's our legislator, he is going to be there. There are two sides to the coin, so let me give some balance to this. So historically, African American, black and brown children have been arrested. They don't have the money to get out of jail. They stay in jail longer than their white counterparts. And so in that sense, yes, there has to be some balance in criminal justice. However, the other part of it, and this is where there's a lot of fear-mongering going on, is that you have to understand that there are certain criminals that will be released. So in New Jersey, they have similar legislation, but the judges have discretion. In the law, the judges have the discretion to remand the person or not, but in New York State, it doesn't. So even though I think it's a worthy bill, it probably needs some tweaks, but many people are coming to me, and I'm asking you to come out on this meeting, February 12th. Carl Hasty will be at this meeting. I suggest you do your research. I want to thank some of the board members who went up to Albany. Dr. Burke, I know you were there. I know he was pressed about the legislation, and I think that was the reason why he's coming to the meeting on February 12th. So please read up on it. Don't listen to me. Read up on the bill. Read the bill. Find out what's going on both sides, and come with your comments, because it does affect you. It does affect you. There wasn't any commentary before. I don't remember it being talked about before the legislation went in, but it affects you. So I'm going to hand out some of these handouts of the meeting, and I hope to see you there. Thank you so much.
So let me first of all thank Mrs. Johnson, because she does excellent work at the 4-7 precinct. As you know, she noted that I was in Albany. I will talk about that in my report. But you know, she and her team do absolutely excellent work, and it was a pretty interesting discussion that was had at the last 4-7 precinct community council meeting. So the speaker himself, as Ms. Johnson noted, will be at the next one. So their meetings are normally on the second Wednesdays of the month, and so I'm going to ask that you come out and support them as well. So with that being said, that ends the public gallery. And so first of all, I want to thank you all for your comments. And again, I'm going to invite you to stay, because a lot of the things that we're going to discuss actually involve you. So with that being said, I need a motion from the floor to go into business session. Is there a second? Okay, so the motion has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any unreadness as to why we cannot go into business session? All those in favor signify by saying, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Have the same right? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, can I ask from quiet from the gallery, please? So with that being said, the next item of business on our agenda is the elected officials or representative reports. And it just so happens that even though we have representatives from the DA's office, our very own district attorney Darcel Clark is here to greet us, and so she's going to give us some words of wisdom. So I ask that you greet our illustrious district attorney and give her your undivided attention.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year. What service? Just walk right in and walk up to the mic. That's okay. Oh, Chuck, you're here. He's following me, this guy here. No. Good evening. I love you too. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone? First of all, I want to say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Secondly, I want to say that I want to thank you all for your support over the last 4 years, and thank you for your votes, because in November I was reelected DA for another 4 years. So thank you very much. And lastly, thank you for your service to this community board. I live in Community Board 12 as well, so this body is near and dear to me. I just wanted to take a few moments to talk to you. You know, there's a lot of things going on in the paper and everything else. So I'm the DA, and whether it's my fault or not, whether it's my responsibility or not, everybody thinks that the criminal justice reform, that I know all the answers. Now, I may not know all the answers, but this is what I do each and every day. So what I'm doing for the next 2 months at least, for the beginning of the year, is really just going around the borough to every community board, precinct council, clergy, coalitions, anybody that'll have me or members of my executive staff, to just go around and explain a little bit about the new laws that took effect January 1st, and about some of the things that my office has been doing and what is continuing to do now that the new laws are in effect. So first, 2 areas that are of most concern, I find, and it's the bail and discovery. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those 2 things and also what my office is doing. So everybody knows that bail is the money that someone puts up in order that they would be released from jail pre-trial. Bail is set for those people who are facing charges, and a judge can listen to the factors of the case, you know, their criminal history, et cetera, and decide whether or not somebody will be in the street at home pending their trial, or if they'll be incarcerated pending trial. So bail has always been, for the most part, put up in order to guarantee that somebody returns back to court. That's always been what the law is. So there was, judges could set bail on misdemeanors, felonies, whatever the case, or could set no bail at all. Just remand people or release them. Well, on January 1st, new bail laws took effect. And the law is now that there's automatic release for certain crimes. So all misdemeanors, with a few exceptions, those being in the areas of domestic violence and some sex crimes, automatically people are going to be released, meaning that the judges can no longer set bail on certain misdemeanor charges. Violent felonies are still crimes that the judges can still set bail on. So the difference between the old law and the new law now is that for misdemeanors, they can't be held in. A lot of attention being brought about that very thing, that, oh my God, all these people going to be out on the street, they're dangerous. Well, I could tell you, the bail law before the new law took effect and since January 1st when the new laws took effect, judges were never allowed to consider the dangerousness of the person in the community. That wasn't one of the things that the judges could look at. But yet and still, the first thing that people think about, really, if somebody should be in jail or if they're out, is because they're dangerous. So with the new law, I can tell you that there's some people who are getting out now on automatic release that even under the old law would have gotten out anyway. So a lot of the hysteria or the concentration on people getting out now and being out there is not totally accurate because it was happening before. It's just that there's a lot more attention on it now. I can tell you as DA, I was in favor of the bail reform laws. You know that I spent 16 years on the bench as a judge, set a lot of bails, sentenced a lot of people to prison. So I know what this is about. And I think that it was unfair that 2 people could be charged with the same exact crime. Let's talk about Harvey Weinstein, right? He's charged with a lot of terrible things, right? But if we had a member of our community in the 4-7 charged with the same crime as Harvey, right? Both of them. Let's say it's the same victim, it's done the same exact way, both of them. But JoJo from the 4-7 don't have money, but Harvey Weinstein does. So you would say, oh, set bail on both of them because they did something terrible or whatever else. JoJo stays in, so he can't be a danger to the community. But Weinstein could put the money up and be out. He's out in the community. He committed the same crime. Is he not also a danger to the same community? So I get why they decided to level the playing field, because that's what it's doing. So regardless of who you are, where you live, what your zip code, certain crimes, and first of all, they're not convicted of it, they've been accused of these crimes. So if you're accused of a crime, certain crimes now, you're automatically released. I can tell you as a DA, there's certain people that I am still asking for bail when I can. So it's not a question of we have dangerous people out. We have the people that now are out by law, and they're waiting to do, get their trials after, once the time comes. Violent crimes is a different story. I'm asking for it when I can, and I will, because I think that's what's important. But what you should know that long before this bail reform started, when I became district attorney, one of the things I did and instructed my assistants was, if it's a case where we're not asking for jail, then we shouldn't be asking for bail. So I was doing that before the reform laws, and I'm continuing to do it now. It's just now that it's the law. So that's the one thing with the bail reform. I agree with it, but I think that it does need some tweaking, and I will admit that. So although I'm in favor of it, I think it could be better implemented. So for example, the biggest glaring gap or loophole that I see on it is that those people who commit crimes that are non-qualifying, meaning that the judge cannot set down bail for them, if they get arrested for it, get released because it's non-qualifying, come out, commit another crime again, non-qualifying, go in, come out again, they're repeating it. These repeat offenders, I think something has to be done. And the way the law is written right now, the judge's discretion to finally do somebody who continues to repeat crimes are not allowed to do it. That is a tweak that I would suggest that the legislature make. And you, as residents of the Bronx and citizens of New York State, I would implore you to speak to our elected officials and tell them that is something that they can do that will still protect the community, because they wrote those laws for people who are going to abide by the law. You find yourself in the criminal justice system, fine, but not somebody who's just going to keep doing it over and over. That's what insanity is, right? Keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result. So that's the tweak that I would want in that. Secondly is the discovery law. And, you have Chucky here, who's the king of, discovery for justice. He fought long and hard to get that law changed. I got to give you credit because you got it done, Chuck. We met, before I became DA. We didn't get along. We're good now. I had a town hall meeting on Tuesday, and he was down there, and he has been supportive, so thank you for your support. So discovery is this. Discovery is the exchange of evidence from the prosecutor to the defense, so that the defendant can know the evidence against them that they're being charged with. As a DA, I could tell you, discovery reform was needed, all right? As a judge and as a prosecutor, I saw abuses in the discovery. DAs holding on to information until the last minute, but the law allowed them to do that. That's what the law was written. It had to be before trial. It didn't say exactly when, it's just before trial. And for some DA's office, that meant, okay, the trial is today, here's all your evidence. That's not fair. That's not fair. So they called it the blindfold law. And the reason why they called it that is that people would take pleas to crimes without even knowing what the evidence was against them. And that's unfair too. So I agree that there should have been some reform in the discovery laws. But, there's always a but for me, is that they made a time frame now. So instead of whenever you feel like it up until trial, they set a goal. It's 15 days after they're arraigned. It's close to impossible for me to be able to do that. I'm doing it. I'm trying my best. But I'm not going to be able to have the DNA in 15 days. But somebody should know what the DNA evidence is, right? The defendant as well as the prosecution should be able to use it. So there's a number of things that realistically I'm not going to be able to have. Also, the law now says that whatever paperwork that the New York City Police Department has, that I'm deemed to have it, meaning whether I have it from them or not, I'm being charged with having the same knowledge as them. The police department didn't have the technology. We didn't have the technology. We have a lot of information that has to be exchanged. They got to get it to me. I got to be able to look at it. Then I got to pass it on to the defense. Hard to do in 15 days, but I'm going to do it the best I can. So for me, discovery laws needed to be revamped. I totally believe that defendants should be able to see the evidence against them, especially before they plead guilty, because that's only fair. So I believe in the fairness of it, but I just think that I would need some more time to really be good at it. So if I was to speak to my elected officials, Carl Hasty and Jamal Bailey, which I have, I said to them, please give us more time. And it's 15 days, it's 15 days. Now, after the 15 days, the DAs can go before the court and ask for an automatic extension of another 30 days. So in 45 days, I'm supposed to get everything. I'm working like heck to do it. I want you to know that I have an outstanding staff that are breaking their butts each and every day to make sure we're in compliance, because I told them that's what we're going to do. We're not going to be non-compliant. We're going to make sure that those who are accused of crime in Bronx are going to get the fairness that they deserve. So that's what I'm doing. But if I could have a little more time, I would. So I would ask for extension of time if we could. Not anything long. I mean, and we talked about this. Give us 30 days, 60 days, whatever. But it is what it is, so that's what we're going to do. But I can see tweaks being made to this. Now, those who are going to be incarcerated while they're waiting for trial, I can really see the fact that we need to expedite the time frame for them, because after all, they're sitting behind bars, not convicted of anything, simply waiting to have their day in court. So for them, I get the expedited timeline, but those who are out, perhaps we could get a little bit more time so we can at least make sure we focus on those who are in as opposed to those who are out. So those are some of the tweaks that I would do. But just know that, again, I have been working on, discovery. When I took over, I told my assistants we have to get it to them sooner. Just because the law didn't say we had to, didn't mean that that's what we should do. So that I've constantly, drilled my team that that's the way I've done. And you can be very proud of the people that you have as the staff of the Bronx District Attorney's Office, because they're working hard each and every day on your behalf. So, I'll stop there. And with the concentration on all this discovery and people being out and things like that, I've always instructed them that we have to look at the underlying reasons why somebody is entering the criminal justice system. And we all know, what some of those reasons are. People have mental health issues. People have drug addiction, poverty, lack of education. Those are the things. So as we get cases coming in, and this is even before the laws changed, I said we need to look at the root of the problem. Why is this person here? And the way to get justice for victims as well as the defendants is try to resolve those issues so then they wouldn't come back. So even with all the fairness that we're making sure that we do for defendants, please do not mistake the fact that my job as a DA is public safety. So those victims and survivors and witnesses are first and foremost. Under the discovery law, and this is the last thing I'll say, and I'll take any questions. Under the discovery law now, when you talk about turning things over in 15 days, we do. But what that includes is the contact information of the witnesses. So the victims of the crimes, witnesses of the crime, we have to turn over their information as well in 15 days. Now, under the old law, we can hold off on that. But now we got to do it in 15 days. So what am I doing to make sure that those witnesses and victims and survivors remain safe? Because my job is public safety, and I want to be able to protect those people who are courageous enough to come forward to become witnesses so that those people that cause these crimes and harm in our community can be held accountable. I can't do it without witnesses. So what we can do by the law is apply a protective order from the judge, which is you go before the judge and you give the reasons why we should be able to redact or withhold the information, the contact information of the witnesses because there's some type of safety risk. So we're making those applications for protective orders. Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. But also, me as a DA, I still have to do more. So even if there's a protective order in place, even if it's not, I have a witness security program that I have detectives that are assigned to these families, witnesses, so that if they are in danger, we've had to turn over their information, that those detectives make sure that they bring them back and forth to court if they have to, monitor them, even relocate them if we have to, whatever it is takes to make them safe. So I have that in place. And then lastly, we've come up with a system, either telephone or email, that the victims can use those anonymous, I won't say anonymous, but numbers that we've gotten assigned from Verizon as well as Google, that we can give the defense the email address or the telephone number so that they can use that to contact the witness and it won't come back to the location of the witness. So those are some of the safeguards that I put in place to still comply with the law, to make sure that the fairness is done for those who are accused, but to always, always, always make sure that the safety of the community and our witnesses and victims come first. So with that, that's just a brief presentation, and if anybody has any questions, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, I'll take them.
Okay, well, so thank you very much. So first of all, I'd ask you to give our District Attorney, Attorney Darcel Parker, a round of applause. So now here's how this is going to work. So because we have a form that we got to get to, so only board members can ask questions. So I do have one question from the audience that was written down, so I will ask that questions after the board members are done. So I'll recognize board members at this point. So I saw 2 hands at the end. Okay, is that Mr. Lanzano? Okay, Mr. Lanzano.
Is this on? Yeah, okay. My understanding is that the reason for bail was to prevent. It's not on?
Yeah, it's on.
My understanding that the reason for bail was to make sure that somebody that's charged comes to the appointed date of the trial.
Right.
If they are released without bail, as is the law, and they do not show up for the appointed date, if they are charged again, will they be denied bail forever? Because they are a flight risk automatically.
Well, it depends on the reason why they come to court. Bail is to make sure that they come back to court. If they're out on bail already on a felony, and while they're out, they're arrested for another felony, the judges can still set bail on those. As far as the misdemeanors are concerned, the non-qualifying ones, it's a little ambiguous. We don't know for sure. But those people, the law does say that if somebody willfully and consistently makes themselves absent from court on that present case or any other cases, then the judges can hold a hearing, and even though it's a non-qualifying bail case, the judge can set bail on those instances. So if somebody keeps warranting, basically supposed to be in court a certain day, they don't come. The law built it now. It's before, like I was a judge, somebody's court case is on, and I say, Mr. So-and-so, where's your client? I don't know, blah, blah. I would say, okay, warrant ordered from the bench. So therefore, that's a warrant where the police can go out and pick them up. Now, under the new law, the judge has to wait 48 hours before they can issue that warrant, which gives the defense attorney 2 days to get their clients back in court so nothing can happen. So that's where we are. So unless it's willful and consistently, missing court, the judge will not necessarily be able to set bail on those non-qualifying offenses. On felonies, it can.
Not only set bail, but can they keep them in jail so that?
You mean remand them?
Yeah.
Yes, the judges can set remand too. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on, somebody who, supposed to be back and, they don't show up. And then when the police find them, they got a one-way ticket to Brazil. Well, yeah, judge might say, well, you're a real flight risk because you were at the airport with a one-way ticket. So it depends on the circumstances.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Lanzone. Now there's a question from Mr. Boris. Okay, so one last question from Mr. Reed.
Yeah, she does. No. Thank you.
Okay, so I apologize, Attorney Clark. We have a couple questions on the other side. I didn't see them. So Deacon Brown?
Yes. In reference to this bill, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is nothing new. Back in the 60s and 70s, there was a judge called Bruce Wright. He stated if a black or brown person commits a crime and the bail is $500, they go to jail. If some other Caucasian commit the same crime and the bail is $5 million, they wouldn't spend a night in jail. So they call him cut him loose Bruce back in the 60s and the 70s. So this is nothing new.
Thank you.
Everyone knows I'm also a TA president. On the 6th of January, there was a shooting. One NYCHA employee shot another. I know we can't talk about litigation as we speak right now, but that being said, the West Bronx, right now, in the Fort Independence area, they're all traumatized. Be that as it may, I have a letter for you, but I just want your assistance to help get some type of management crisis to the residents. So I'm asking, I'll let you know exactly when we're gonna have the gathering, but it's very important.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
And the last thing, DA Clark, is this is from the audience who wants to give you some encouragement. So this particular constituent of ours states that they would like you to speak to the other New York State district attorneys who are against the new reforms to stop the fear mongering. In other words, telling the citizens that they need to go back to the old law. So that's again from one of the constituents in the audience who was smart enough to write their question down and submit it to me as the chair. So just to give you that bit of encouragement from that particular constituent.
I have talked to them. And you know what? It's 62 counties in New York State. So that means there's 62 DAs. And every community is different, you know. Everybody, you know, every DA does it their own way. I mean, I think we're fortunate here in New York City. We have 5 DAs that are pretty, you know, progressive-minded. You know, things have changed quite a bit over the last couple of years with the ones we have here. Those 5, we have Nassau, Suffolk, and I would say Westchester. The 8 of us are pretty tight because things downstate are way different than some of the things that are happening upstate. So I think that one of the reasons why also the legislature changed the laws may not be, and I hear this all the time from Carl Hasty and Jamal, if every DA was like you, Darcel, we wouldn't have to do this because you know how to be fair. But there are other DAs who don't see it the same way. And people in black and brown, their communities suffer more harm because of the practices and procedures of the DAs and the police in those communities than we do. So they have to look, you know, broadly. They're not just looking at the Bronx and I'm doing a good job. Okay? They have to look at the other counties.
So with that being said, we would like to thank our district attorney, Darcel Clark, for coming here in person to give us her insight on the bail reform laws. So this gets to actually one of the, one of the constituents actually asked a question, why aren't our politicians here? And as you said, you're here, DA Clark, and actually we have another one behind you. So we have Councilman Andrew Cohen, who is also here. So Councilman Cohen, if you would like to say some words to the body, we would deeply appreciate it. So again, thank you, District Attorney Clark, for your insight. And I would like to welcome Councilman Andrew Cohen to Community Board 12.
All right, good evening, everybody. Good evening. I went to church with the DA on Monday. We've seen a lot of each other lately. I went to church here in Wakefield. I went to, your Jewish council member went to church twice in the last 2 weeks in Wakefield. So I've been making the rounds, and DA Clark is everywhere. So I appreciate her work, And let me just also say, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, the city council had nothing to do with bail reform. So that's when your state legislators come, you can talk to them about it. And I know that it was a labor of love for Senator Bailey, that he really cares deeply about this community, but also about a lot of injustice that happens across the state. So I will say I have a few announcements at my office. As you know, we're going to soon on March 1st, very soon, the plastic ban bag is going into effect. If you want a reusable bag, you can come by my office. We have them. We're giving them away for free. The Metro Card van is going to be in Woodlawn on January 30th at the library. You can go there. You can get if you're a senior, you can get your Metro Card filled. You can do the application there. It's early. The city is going to adopt a budget in the end of June. But as I've told people, I'm not doing the whole participatory budget thing anymore. So if you have an idea for that's something that needs capital dollars from the city, the process is going to be a little simpler. Just tell me. All right? I mean, I have Tori Thomas from my office who's here every month. I think virtually everyone here knows how to get in touch with me. Just let us know. If there's something I can do, I want to do it. I know that I've sent, there are a few, I have 2 years left in office. I think that there's 2 possible potential rezonings that are kicking around in my side of Wakefield. I think one of the developers recently came. Obviously, that's on White Plains Road. As always, your input is vitally important on these land use items. I tell everybody, come often, come early. I think that this board has intelligent people who are reasonable, who can strike the right balance. There is a need for quality, affordable housing in Wakefield and all across the city, but we need to be sensible about the size and scope of development. And I feel like you guys have done a great job with that work in my time in office, and I have confidence that we'll continue that till the end of my time. And last, to Carl and Carla, you're up this year, so if you're reapplying, you should reapply. The community board applications are up.
So thank you, Councilman Cohen, for your insight and for coming to the board. So let me just say I invite you to stay, because actually what you just got finished talking about rezoning, I'm actually going to, there's a presentation, Part B, subsection 8, in which we're going to actually talk about that, the rezoning and how it's affected the Williamsbridge section, but also it will apply to yours. So if you have some time, I ask you to stick around. Sure. And we're going to try to get through this meeting, try to push it a little bit further along. So does anybody have? What was that, Councilman, question? Okay, all right, great. So thank you. So with that being said, let me honor the rest of the elected officials. So with that being said, we have, before we get to the borough president's report, we have Mary Ann Joyce from Senator Biaggi's office. She's here? Okay, and she has something to, an announcement right quick. And then after that, we have Ivan Des from Assemblyman Denowitz's office. Oh, Ned's, okay. Okay, but first of all, Mrs. Joyce.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Ann Joyce. I'm with State Senator Alessandra Biaggi's office. I just have a couple of items we want everyone to know about. The second annual Bronx Delegation Budget Forum is being held on January 30th at Lehman College. It's an opportunity for anyone in the Bronx to come and tell their state senator what they think should be in the budget next year. It'll be Senator Biaggi, Senator Rivera, Senator Serrano, and Senator Sepulveda. I think Senator Bailey had another engagement, but I'm sure they'll share the information with him. It's Tuesday, January 30th from 6:30 to 8:30. Anyone's welcome to offer oral or written testimony. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to speak, and if you can't make it or if you want to submit your testimony ahead of time, you can email it to any of the senators' offices. And it's this flyer, Spanish and English. It's some flyers are out front. I also brought some voter registration forms. If you know anyone who isn't registered to vote, you can share that with them. Senator Biaggi's 2020 legislative priorities. And for folks who want to read up before the 47th Precinct Community Council meeting, I have a flyer, Understanding New York's Historic Criminal Justice Reforms. It explains the rationale for the reforms on the part of the state senate or the state legislature, and these flyers are out front, and I'm happy to get more of them if folks want more. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Biaggi. Mr. Neds from Assemblyman Dinowitz's office.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ivan Neds, as was stated, from State Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz's office. I'm going to follow Toba's lead and wish everybody a Happy New Year on behalf of myself and our office. With the new year, it's the beginning of a new legislative session. We had a very productive one last year, so hopefully we can continue that into this year. The Assemblyman's back and forth between our district and Albany, so when he's not here, I'm at every single meeting, usually hiding in the back, but you guys really switched up the layout on me today, so I actually like it. It's very open. But the Assemblyman wanted to send me here just to give everybody a heads up on a issue that has been concerning a lot of residents, especially in the outer boroughs. That is the MTA's redesign plan for their bus services. The MTA came out last year with a bus redesign plan that would essentially cut many of the express bus services, especially to the outer boroughs, and which would directly affect the Bronx. After many discussions with the MTA, between our office and the other elected officials' offices, including Andy Cohen, we just want to let everybody know that we did receive confirmation from the MTA that they will not be cutting any express bus services for at least a year. So that's good news. Doesn't mean the fight's over. They will be revisiting their proposals in 2021, but at least for right now, you can all rest assured that your express buses will not be cut. But that's pretty much all I have for you right now. We also did bring literature, like Marianne. We have 2020 parking calendars, just to let you know when alternate sides are in effect and when they aren't in effect. There's some census information as well as our most recent newsletter. So it's great seeing all of you, and I'll see you at the next one.
All right. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Nez. We have Mr. Chiron Ireland from Speaker Carl Hasey's office.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to come to wish everyone a wonderful New Year's from the Assemblyman Carl Hasey's office. It's such a wonderful sight to see the youths in the community engaging in civic engagement. It's always wonderful to see that. I don't have any official announcements, but I just wanted to remind everyone that the census is this year, and they are hiring a lot of people from the community, so we're encouraging people to apply. And I just also wanted to mention that I'm going blank right now, but I'm pretty sure it will come back to me. Oh yes, we did pass, 2018 was a big year for us. We passed the strongest tenant protections laws in New York history. We also did a lot of criminal justice reform, and we definitely been receiving a lot of calls from constituents all over the U.S. We have people from other states calling in to put in their 2 cents with the bail reform. But as you know, session just started on the 9th, and we're definitely going to be putting in a lot of work, and the Assemblyman is back and forth. But I do encourage everyone to participate in the community, the 47th precinct meeting, as Pamela Johnson said. The speaker will be there, so I encourage you to come with your questions if you have any concerns. But have a good night, everyone.
Okay, so thank you very, very much, Mr. Ireland. Next, we have, of course, Mr. Brian Melford representing. Okay. Well, let's go ahead, Mr. Reed, if you don't mind, we can, if you can, just catch up with him, because he left, and so if you can talk with him off. What's that? Okay. Question?
I don't have it on me right now, but we do have the information in the office. We're located at 1446 East Gun Hill Road. You're more than welcome to come in, and if you need help filling out the application, we're more than happy to assist you with doing that as well.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. So we have Mr. Melford. I just saw him here. Is Mr. Melford from Councilman Andy King's office? He left? All right. So again, we've heard from District Attorney herself, but I think she has some representatives here. Is that Larry Ann? Did I say that? And Mr. Vera. So again, we've already heard from the DA herself, and we have Mr. Victor Martinez from Comptroller Scott Stringer's office.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Victor Martinez. I'm here on behalf of New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer. The only announcement that I have for today is that we're accepting applications for our summer internship program. It's going to start in June, and it's going to run to August. The application period is until March 6th, and this internship is for undergrad and graduate students. So it will be great, like, for students from here, from the community, to apply, and it's a great opportunity to learn about how the city works and actually even like how the comptroller's office works. And the other thing is that it has a compensation, so it's a paid internship. So it's really difficult to find paid internships, so this is one of them. If you have any questions, if you would like the flyer or anything, just let me know. Thank you.
Okay, so again, so questions are from board members only. So if you're in the audience and you have a question for Mr. Martinez, then I'm going to ask that you talk to him in the back. So he will be in the back and available for you. Okay? All right, so with that being said, is there a Manuel Legatas from the Bronx? Okay, this is Department of City Planning? Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I've finally made it to Community Board number 12. I've been assigned to this board since James Rather left. He was with us for approximately 3 years, and he found another job in a different state, and we wish him well, and I was assigned to the board here. Before coming to this board, well, first of all, let me tell you a little about myself. I've been working for the department for approximately 40 years. And in that time, I've been liaison to almost pretty close 3/4 of the community boards. I've been the liaison to Board 1, Board 2, Board 7, Board 8, Board 9, Board 6, Board 10, Board 11. And I'm here for Board 12. I see that it's a very lively board, and I like that. I also want you to know that I'm going to give you my phone number. Any questions that you may have regarding planning in this district, whether it be rezoning, special permits, etc., feel free to call me. My number is 718-220-8508, and that goes also for the members in the audience. I take whatever zoning questions you have. I'm not an expert in zoning, but I've been handling the zoning desk for approximately 5 years, and I don't mind answering any questions. I'm always available. If I'm at a meeting, just leave me a message, and I will get back to you. As a matter of fact, our planners, we're very user-friendly. If we're out in the field or at a meeting and you call us, we like to get right back to you. I also want to inform you, and I see that it's later on in the agenda, that we're having a community board member orientation. I won't talk much on that because I don't know if the district manager or the chair will add to that. I sent flyers to the office here, and I know they might have distributed to you. There is a deadline of January 20, but forget about the deadline. We have 51 people now, and we'd like to get more. So if you're interested in attending the session, this will be on Monday, the 27th. The location, I got up so quickly, I left it in my bag, but it's 149th Street. Okay, so just call the office. Excuse me. Leave your name and contact information, and we'll get back to you. A lot of these people that are giving the presentations will talk about zoning, ULURP. I've trained them as they came in. Most of them stayed, which is good. Others go, but I won't be doing any speaking, but they'll be, giving you the orientation. Do you have any questions on anything regarding planning or anything for your district? Yes, my office number, 718-220-8508. That's my direct number. I don't want to just give you a 00 and, no. Call me directly. Excuse me? Oh, yes, 718-220-8508, and that's Manny, M-A-N-N-Y, Lagares, L-A-G-A-R-E-S. Okay? So I
Okay.
welcome your calls. I'll return them.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lagares, because you will be hearing from us. Rest assured of that. As you can see, it is on the agenda, and I will be giving out the address for the planning session, because I think that, obviously as first vice chair, I've registered for it, and I'm hoping I'm going to encourage the rest of the board to do so as well. Okay?
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so the elected officials, again, why they are here is to give us information. So although, like I said, that was a little lengthier than we thought, but the bottom line is we got very useful information from them. So hopefully you were able to digest that. And again, if you have any questions, as you said before, they have made themselves available to us. But with that, moving forward, I'd like to go to the next item of the agenda and invite Ms. Diaz to offer a report from the Bronx Borough President.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alexis. I'm with the Borough President's Office. I just want to give an announcement and some reminders. So the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, and the Bronx Borough President is holding and inviting you to a non-for-profit incorporation and tax exemption workshop. It's happening tomorrow, January 24th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Hostos on the 3rd floor. I will be leaving this flyer up front for anybody that's interested in attending. For the reminders, I want to remind my members who are up for reappointment this year that your reappointment application is due Friday, February 7th. Also, all board members must complete the sexual harassment training course by Friday, February 7th. If you are up for reappointment and you do not take the sexual harassment training course, your application will not be considered for reappointment. Please call your district manager to schedule a time to take the course at the district office, or contact my office if you would like to take the course at the Borough President's Office. Thank you and have a great evening.
All right, thank you so much, Alexis, from the Borough President. With that being said, we're going to go to the chairperson's report, and so since the chair isn't here, I'm going to give my report. And again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because most of you, if you're board members, you should have received it already in the minutes, but I will highlight a couple of things, in particular on item number 1. As you're well aware, I sent out a call to action in and around Thanksgiving. And first of all, I want to thank the board members who did respond. Okay, for those of you that did respond, I want to say thank you because you gave me plenty of suggestions and ways to move forward. With that being said, I have an update. So as far as the potential shelter on Grace Avenue, in speaking with Speaker Hasty and some of our other elected officials, at the moment, that shelter has been taken off the table for the moment. Okay? Now, in regards to the one on 1591 East 233rd Street, that one is a 200-bed women's shelter and children's shelter. Now, in speaking with the speaker, and for those of you that know me, board members as well as audience, you know I'm against all shelters. But in speaking with the speaker, and again, this has been proposed by the Department of Homeless Services, the speaker, said that we have to pick and choose our battles. And when I think about his logic, it actually does make a little bit of sense, because if you are a woman and you are a victim of domestic violence, and of course, you're being beaten up and you have a child, then where are you going to go? So if you do not provide them a safe place to be, then obviously, bad things can happen to them. So I can get that. So that one right now is tentative. The problem with it, of course, is that it's in an M1 district, which means that, they would have to be rezoned. All right, and of course, that's where city planning comes in. So that's something that, we're negotiating or is in negotiations at the moment. I'm going to talk about the Housing Committee just briefly, and again, I'm not going to steal Mr. Hall's thunder, but he's going to mention two things that we discussed, but I will say that as far as item 3 is concerned, that's where a lot of board members showed up to use that as a de facto strategy session. So in the call to action that I had issued, a lot of board members came to that. I invited board members who really cared and are concerned, and those actually showed up. So there was quite a number of people that showed up at the December meeting as well. As you also know, you've heard us say part of the reason why we were elected is to make change. And so we met with the chair, and again, a lot of change, some of which is on the agenda, is going to be discussed a little bit this evening. And so just want to let you know that we plan on making things a little bit more efficient for all the board members. And last but not least, I want to talk about the assembly opening session that I, of course, Ms. Sadie and other board members were fortunate enough to be guests of Speaker Hasty and attend. And as said before, there was quite a bit of policy discussion. So not only were we able to see our government in Albany work, but we were also able to discuss policy. So for instance, one of the things that we discussed was the potential shelter that B&B Urban is proposing. And again, I'm going to get into that in my talk, so I'm going to skip that as well. And I'm also going to skip the Housing and Parks Committee meeting, as I said before. And the reason I'm doing that is because, board members, you should have already seen my report, so I don't want to belabor the point on that. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to our illustrious district manager, Mr. George Torres, and give him an opportunity to present his report to the board.
Good evening, board members. Very quickly, before Brian left, Councilmember King had two announcements to make. He asked us to make it. The councilman will be having a town hall meeting in regards to the, for those people, I guess, who live in Co-op City or are concerned about the wind turbine that collapsed. That town hall meeting is going to happen on Wednesday, January 29th at the Bartow Mall, room 2031. We will flyers out over there on the table, and the councilman is also collecting donations for Puerto Rico in support of the island and the devastating earthquakes. You can drop off any and all donations to the office of Councilmember Andy King, 940 East Gun Hill Road, Bronx, New York. So if you have anything that you want to donate, non-perishable food, clothing, and medical supplies are needed. So you can always do that. So back to my report. Good evening, board members, and Happy New Year. Thank you to all of those that attended our holiday open house in December. I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. It is a tradition to make a New Year's resolution when celebrating the holiday. So my resolution for work will be to finish. We must rely on others for these resolutions to come true, but I hope that this will be the year that all the outstanding items for the physical improvements of this building will be complete. You are now sitting on new cushioned chairs, sitting at brand new tables that are not heavy, thank for my back. I have 5 very large screen televisions still in the box sitting in my office that will be placed on these walls as soon as they do the physical improvements. They have to seal the wall. I'm working with DCAS, our landlord, to make sure that these projects are finished before the end of this fiscal year, which ends on June 30th, so fingers crossed. The last time we spoke, or the last time I spoke to you in this capacity, I warned about organizing our board to be able to be nimble to respond to things that happen within the confines of our district. On November 25th, 2019, I was notified by the Department of Homeless Services that they had selected Community Board 12 to receive 2 programs for homeless individuals. The first shelter was proposed for 3240 Grace Avenue for 200 single adults, men, and it was going to be run by an organization called Black Veterans for Social Justice. The anticipated opening of this shelter is late 2020. The second shelter was proposed for 1591 East 233rd Street for 200 single adults, women. It is going to be run by an organization called the Bronx Parent Housing Network. The anticipated opening of this shelter is mid-2021. I outlined in several emails to the board between November and now all the steps and information that I had received from the city. Dr. Burke and I will be attending a meeting tomorrow with other community boards in the Bronx to discuss what's going on with DHS. More importantly, Community Board 12 has asked for a meeting with DHS to discuss their plans for our district. DHS has agreed to our demands for a meeting. All we need to do now is give them some dates and schedule it. As board members and community residents, I hope we can all make it. I think that this is a very serious issue that truly needs to be debated. I plan on tailoring my conversation on facts and technicalities. The two shelters that are slated for our district are going to be built in districts that are zoned as manufacturing districts. These are zoned for manufacturing purposes. The building on Grace Avenue was once a lighting factory. The building on East 233rd Street I understand to be the old Imperial Milk Factory. The city and these two non-for-profit providers have not approached the community board to ask for a rezoning to turn these into residential districts. These organizations are planning on converting these two buildings into hotels, which is permissible within manufacturing districts. The funny thing is that the commissioner of DHS has stated repeatedly that he wants to get out of the hotel business and the cluster site housing program that were used in the past to house homeless people. If your stated intention was to do away with the use of hotels for homeless shelters, why are you pursuing these locations? Moreover, many of you may remember that the City Council changed the law with regards to the siting of hotels in manufacturing districts. They did not do away with it, but they amended the law to include the voice of the community. As of December 20th, 2018, if anyone wanted to develop a hotel in the manufacturing district, they needed to come before the community board, similar in fashion to the Uniform Land Use Review Process, or ULURP for short. All this means is that if you wanted to turn this building into a hotel and then to a homeless shelter, they needed the community board's approval. They're not doing that, and they have no intention of pursuing this path. They're breaking their own rules and laws in order to build these facilities in our neighborhoods. My final statement on this will be that we have been told verbally that the facility on Grace Avenue was not happening, and as they said, they were walking it back. This is great news for all the residents that live near this facility, and all the credit belongs to our elected officials that I spoke to, especially our speaker, Carl Hasty. He was very responsive when I spoke to him, and I want to thank him for his leadership on this issue. We still need to remain vigilant, and we will send out notices when the meeting with DHS is scheduled. So in conclusion, today marks my 1,635th day as your district manager, or 4 years, 5 months, and 21st day of my tenure here. I look forward to each and every day at the board. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Torres, for your leadership and in particular the call to action. And let me just make a comment before we move on to the next part of the meeting. One thing that I could say about some of the community boards is that there was, and I think our district manager mentioned this the last time in November, is that 1,000 people showed up. 1,000 people showed up. You know what the developers did? The developers immediately took that shelter off the table. Can we say the same thing, Community Board 12, right now? Can we say the same thing? As Councilman King sat right here and said last year, okay, when I come a-calling, you need to respond. Can we say that? Councilman Cohen said the same thing. Now, luckily, we were able to defeat that particular shelter, but when a call to action is issued, what are we going to do? I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, all right? What are we going to do? And if you responded to Well, I'll just say, what are we going to do? And I'll leave it like that. So with that being said, let's move on to committee recommendations. So there's nothing to vote on per se, but I want to actually make an announcement from the Health Committee, and this was sent to me by Mr. Lanzano. So Mr. Lanzano says that the Health and Human Services Committee has tentatively scheduled a meeting with the Department of Health on the subject of rat control, awareness, and prevention at 6:30 p.m. on February the 12th, which is a Wednesday, here at the Carriage House. And the second meeting with Ms. Spencer, who's going to give her presentation in about 5 minutes, on her topic at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, February the 12th, all right, which is the same day, and that's submitted by Mr. Lanzano.
Excuse me, Mike? Yeah. When I made those dates, I didn't realize there would be a conflict with the 47th Precinct Community Council. So
Okay.
I'm going to try and change it. I'll cancel the appointments, and I'm going to try and make it for the day after, which would be February 13th.
Okay.
6:30 and 7:30.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the correction, Mr. Lanzano. So you heard the corrections from Mr. Lanzano. So for those of you that are on the Health Committee, again, you heard the corrections, and so again, we will make certain that we go to that. Housing. Mr. Hall? You have anything?
Yeah. I'm so glad Councilman Cohen is here. On the 14th of this month, the Housing Committee met with the Doe Fund with regards to 98 units to support housing on 4519 White Plains Road. The components consist of 45 studios, 28 two-bedroom apartments. The question of concern was the 60% AMI. We always talk about affordability, and the issue comes up all the time, affordable to whom? In this particular situation, the Doe Fund is looking for a letter of support, but this letter of support goes for the low-income facilitation aspect. They need a letter of support to comply with the Section 8 New York City Housing Authority Code as it lends itself to getting residents from Section 8. So for that reason, they were in pursuit of a letter of support. 45, was this 4519? 45, I thought it was 4550. 4519 White Plains Road. Now, we had several very interesting topics that came up, one of which Dr. Burke did propose, and that is that the folks from the low-income section regarding the development of this facility be seniors and or veterans. But this was something that was proposed. The criminal situation as it lent itself to the creation of this facility, it was thwarted because they're going to have 24-hour security rather than just cameras. They decided to have 24-hour securities. So that being said, it's also as of right, which is something that comes up time and time again. It is something that the committee pretty much combats because we become just an advisory capacity. When in fact, if we don't like anything, these folks, we got to be thankful that they even come to us. So we're going to need some type of legislation with regards to this, that we have more of a say, because as a chairperson, I'm not sitting here allowing everybody to just come forward. But I do not like the idea that every time I turn around, it's as of right. Now, the best thing I could do is make sure that a neighborhood advisory board is always created and that I get the most bang for our buck, and I'll get everything I can out of developers. But that's what I do, all right? And I know that. But I don't like taking my meetings and educating all of my members on how we're to operate, when in fact, we're only in an advisory capacity when we talk about the ULURP. And that's something that needs to be dealt with. You know, we have a little more intellect than just that.
This site is just senior housing? No.
No, it's not senior housing. Not just senior housing. All right. What I did do, they want this letter of support, and I told them I needed to have a conversation with our land use committee.
But it's supportive housing.
It's supportive housing. It is supportive housing. For that reason, it becomes problematic because it's as of right. But these are things that we need to talk about, which is why I was caught in the quandary. And I did allow them, I did not promise them a letter until the end of next month, because I want to talk amongst ourselves, because we're all over the place. However, we have valid points, and these points need to be dealt with so that we can come up with the action plan.
And that's part of what we're going to talk about this evening. And again, as Mr. Hall said, we're going to go to committee, the Housing Committee as well as the Land Use Committee, and that's why we're going to talk about committee structure, even though I know time, got away from us per se, but you guys had good information. But that's something that we need to talk about, because we're not going to be run over anymore. You know what I mean? And I let the Doe Fund and SKF and JASCO and all these doggone developers, B&B, they all know where we stand on that. So, again, as Mr. Hall said, the exact same thing that I was going to propose, and so I'm going to talk about it again. So legislation, you and or Councilman King, would help us, and so we're going to hopefully draft some resolutions in committee and then come to both of you and hopefully have a meeting and talk about that.
I think that that's great. I will tell you that even though I'm not statutorily obligated, for instance, I will not exercise the council's Article 11 authority without sending the applicant to the community board and requiring a letter of support. So there are things that we can do from a policy perspective, and it's been a partnership. And again, as I said when I spoke, I feel like Community Board 12 has been a very responsible partner. I have, I don't want to name numbers, but some community boards will say no to everything. It doesn't matter what it is, just no, 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 no. I think that Community Board 12 has been thoughtful. One of the things that I like about affordable housing development is when you get straight affordable housing, I know what we're going to get for the next 40 years or 50 years, where there's no bait and switch. There's no opportunity for a developer to turn it into a shelter. So, again, I mentioned I know that some people are coming about projects along White Plains Road, but they're straight affordable housing projects. I think that will be, I'm going to listen to the community board and hear what you guys have to say, but I'm encouraged that it's that kind of development versus some other kinds of developments that can be really challenging and place, hardships on the community where you have to dig deeper to be a good neighbor. So, I think that I've tried my best, and I'm sure Councilman King too, to try to make sure that we've been partners with, the administration. I can pass a law, the mayor has to sign that law. And the mayor's trying with the best of intentions to put as many people in housing as he can do that. And there's a need for supportive housing, there's a need for shelter, there's a need for all these things. We have to make sure that we're treated fairly is really, I think, the goal of this community board, and it's certainly my goal.
Okay, thank you. And you've really been an ally as far as that's concerned over a number of years. So, I really want to applaud you for that.
It's teamwork.
But our goal is to set up an action plan and to derive at a conclusion where we have more impetus as far as this is concerned. Because we're not just yes people or no people. We do our homework. We are grassroots, okay?
Okay, so Mr. Figueroa has a question?
Yeah, so I think what the chair is trying to say, which makes sense, which will make sense to us, as of right, to any developer, they'll come and build what's as of right. They don't got to come to us for an approval. We need to put it that, regardless of whether it's as of right or not, you got to come to us and get the okay from us. This particular project we're talking about, it's not affordable housing. It's supportive housing. It's not affordable housing. So it's a big difference. So they could tell you one thing and sell it to you like, oh, it's affordable, and you're okay with it, but then when they come to us, they tell us something else, and that's what happened here. And
The Doe Fund budget has not come to me at all about this project.
Well, you see what I mean?
And see, that's just what we're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. They say one thing, and they come and say something else. At the end of the day, this is our community. We live here. When something gets built, and the people come, they say, we approved it. We didn't approve nothing. You see what I'm saying? If it's something that's as of right, we need more hand-on and say, you know what? It's as of right, but come to us. Let us decide if it's as of right and if it's something that's gonna benefit us. This particular building, I don't see how it's gonna benefit us. They're saying 20 apartments for seniors, affordable. What's affordable? Affordable to me is like $19,000. That's affordable for a senior. Am I right, guys? Right?
Right.
That's not gonna happen. 49 of the other apartments are inclusionary with beds. That's not affordable housing. That's institutionalized, and they're gonna make money off that. And then the other 29 apartments are so-called quality housing apartments, which are full value market apartments. So that's not an affordable project. It's just not.
And once again, this is before we even talk about parking or lack thereof.
Right. So
We didn't even get to that.
Right. So let's do this. So Councilman Cohen, what we would like to do is invite you to the next Housing Committee and Land Use, because I think we're going to call a joint meeting. I want to give you a copy of this because I'm going to talk about this, and this is exactly what you're talking about. And so every board member, I'm going to give you this website because this is exactly what we're talking about. So I don't know if the camera could zoom in on that, but it says raising the stakes on the homeless. So, and how these developers are making millions upon millions of dollars. So if you don't mind, Councilman Cohen, let's because I need to move on. So let's go ahead and you and Mr. Hall and Mr. Strickler, let's get together, and myself and the chairman, and we get together and formulate a plan.
The only thing, just as soon as you know the schedule, let me know, because scheduling is always a challenge.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great.
Okay.
Thank you.
You guys have a great night. Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.
So next, let's hear from Mr. Boris in Parks.
Oh, all right, no problem. Cause I got that thing to ask you for. I need that capital project. I need a capital project. Thank you. Yes, please. All right, no problem. Just want to hold you to it.
Okay.
It's not that expensive. Thank you. All right. Good evening, board members, constituents, and most importantly, the community. I'm Ivan Boris, your Parks Committee Chair. First, I just want to express that I'm pleased to see the setup that I suggested is being implemented. We look great. I'm sure many of us agree. I also want to commend the first Vice Chair on his email communication with us. This past email communication it was outstanding. Thank you, First Vice Chair. The Parks Committee met on November 12th. In attendance was myself, Parks Manager Matt Doron, First Vice Chair Dr. Michael Burke, board members Ms. Denise Bond, and CB12 resident Ms. Baez. CB12 resident Ms. Baez brought concerns about Seton Falls Park on East 223rd. She expressed concerns for the litter that's taking place in the area. Ms. Baez demonstrated due diligence in not only presenting a presentation on the matter, but made suggestions on how the litter problem could be rectified in the future. She presented where potential trash bins could be strategically placed, such as intersections without trash cans and enforcement of park permits. CB12 Parks Manager expressed what is currently being done and stated he will heed the committee's request in placing trash bins with the understanding as long as it does not promote illegal dumping. He also said he will be putting up more signage. Moreover, Ms. Baez shed light on the school trash of PS 111 on Crawford Avenue. It is apparent PS 111 is leaving scattered trash that is unsightly and a hazard for the community. This trash is adjacent, is right across the street from Seton Falls Park, so that just adds to it. The committee would like a letter written on behalf of the board to the principal of PS 111 to rectify this matter. Ms. Baez, I want to express, is a model of the CB12 resident, and I applaud her efforts to service the community. As you know, we sunsetted, and so I'm going to move on to my next report. So that was a report for November. We sunsetted in December. The Parks Committee met on January 14th. In attendance was myself, Parks Manager Matt Doron, First Vice Chair Dr. Michael Burke, Ms. Denise Bond, and CB12 resident Ms. Baez once again. Topics of discussion was the beginning of construction for Shoelace Park, which started in December 2019. There will be 3 phases, and with the completion projected date of December 2021. Unfortunately, there will be no historical conservation Many may not know, but Shoelace Park is the location of the first U.S. highway. I personally feel this is not something that should be overlooked, but should be acknowledged with some sort of historical commemoration. The committee is requesting a letter to Parks Commissioner to request, to recognize this historical factor in our community. The committee would like any suggestions from the community. You can reach out to me, I'll give you my information, for you to, so how we can specifically recognize this historical site, or historical aspect of Shoelace Park. The committee is pleased to inform two new park officers have been hired for CB12. Nevertheless, CB12 still requires a projected 3 more officers. It's difficult due to budgeting. Lastly, the committee would like a letter to our local leaders in request for a pump track at RC Park. I see you still stayed, so that's what we're requesting. So at RC Park, everybody knows what RC Park is. That is the park right underneath Gun Hill Road, Gun Hill and what's the cross street there? Webster. Okay, there was an RC Park that was there. It was a unique amenity that Community Board 12 had, but it's been unkept and underutilized. So now Parks has decided that they're just going to do away with it and just basically pave it out. So I think, you know, rather than take away something so unique as that, we can put in something else unique, such as a BMX pump track, okay? And I'll do a presentation at our next meeting on what that would actually look like for our community. And it's not, from what to my understanding, it's not a large capital project. Okay. No, I'll definitely. Okay. I would like for everybody to congratulate our new Vice Chair of Parks Committee, Ms. Denise Bond. In her report, Ms. Bond's report, she shared that for board members or our constituents who desire a more active role in advocating for our local parks and are not sure where to begin, we have a few suggestions for you. Play Fair New York City. It's an advocacy group that has been around for 100 years and that strives to give New Yorkers a voice in championing the quality of their open space in our neighborhoods. Another organization is the Bronx Coalition of Parks and Green Spaces, also known as Bronx Park Speaks Up, has been around for over 25 years. The first Bronx Park Speak Up Forum was held in 1995 to organize community groups around park issues and to create a calendar of events in Bronx parks. The day-long session was begun by the Bronx Council for Environmental Quality as a forum for creating a calendar of events of Bronx parks. So if you want to just reach out, if you want to participate, just reach out to these groups: Play Fair New York City, the Bronx Coalition of Parks and Green Spaces, and Bronx Parks Speak Up. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Boris. So you asked for us to vote on something, but I guess it's not on the agenda. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask. So you're asking for a motion for what now?
3 letters. I believe it's 3. So it's 2? 3. Which one? Tell me. Go ahead. So we want one written to Parks Commissioner.
Okay.
In reference into recognizing the historical factor of the first highway in the U.S. at Shoelace Park.
Okay. So why don't we do this? Why don't we stack your letters and
Yes.
then ask for unanimous consent?
Absolutely.
So I think I want to get, because we've been, again, we did not know that the district attorney was going to come, or Councilman Cohen, which of
Right.
course lengthened the meeting. And so I apologize to Ms. Spencer. We didn't know that was going to happen. So, and again, that was a little lengthier than we wanted. So let's stack your letters and then ask for unanimous consent. So can I get so what are your other 2 letters?
2, yeah. And the other one is for the school, this letter to the principal of
Okay.
PS 111. Thank you.
There's another letter.
No. There's 2. And then the last one, we had Mr. Cohen here, so I already actually spoke to him, so it's really 2. So I got to speak to him personally.
Okay. So let's do this. So I need a motion, so let's see if for unanimous consent, because like I said, I know Madam Secretary is gonna call the roll. I don't think there's gonna be any objections, so you wanna put a motion for unanimous consent? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Benitez. What's that?
Making the motion.
I'm making the motion to approve the writing those 2 letters.
Okay. Any objections?
No, I second the motion.
Okay, motion has been moved and properly seconded. Okay, any objections?
No, not,
Okay.
there's not an objection, but I just want to add, 1 year ago in November, Russ LeCount stayed right in this community board, and he asked that trees be placed on Holland Avenue between Gun Hill Road and Magenta Street. And he needed a letter from the chairman to go to Parks, and that has not been addressed. And I get calls every other day regarding it. So I just kind of want to throw that into the mix.
Please, I welcome it.
And you know, I did mention it to you. I keep running by and throwing it at you.
Yes.
But in any event, I just want to include that letter in the pile.
Okay.
First Vice Chair, can you please include that?
Okay, yeah, without question. So we're stacking that, so we're stacking all of the letters of support. And the motion has been made and properly seconded.
The motion's amended to add those trees to the.
Okay, so we have to amend the motion. So the motion has been amended. Is there a proper second? Second. Okay. Any objections?
No.
So ordered. So let's move on. I think those are the only committee reports that we have, correct? Oh, I'm sorry, question? Okay, call a motion to the floor. All those in favor of the motion, call, so I saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed, have the same right? Any abstentions? So moved. Okay, so with that being said, let's move on to the board minutes. And again, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on that because again, hopefully most of you have seen the board minutes because they were sent out actually today. So with that being said, we're actually going to need a motion to accept the board minutes. Of course, if there are any corrections, then so be it. So I need a motion from the floor.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as accepted.
Okay, so Mr. Lanzano seconded. Okay. With that being said, now this one, obviously there were some people that were absent, so they may or may not want to abstain. So with that being said, Madam Secretary, you call a roll?
Hassan Abdul. Franklin Alpoco. Judith Benitez. Denise Bond. Ivan Anthony Boraz. Carla Basati. Aye. Thank you. Marlene Allen Brown. Victor Brown. Deacon Edward Brown. Norbert Bryan.
Upstairs.
Dr. Michael Burke.
Aye.
Sadie Campbell. Aye. Evelyn Christian. Gail Clark. Joan Claude. Robert Cumberbatch. Tolly Dickerson. Oh, same. Tolene. Oh, yeah. Okay. Laura Esteman. She was excused. Kevin Itcherberger. Itcherberger. Okay, he ain't here nowhere. Raymond Evans. Alfredo Figueroa. Barbara LeGrant Gibson. Johnny Goff. Chantel Green. Robert Hall.
Aye.
Thank you. Theodore James.
Aye.
Carla Lozano, excuse me. I thought he was. Call. Sorry. Lanzano. right. Afis Las, okay, thank you. That's all right. Lucille Martin. Mary McLeod. Walter McNeil. Clinton Mike. Sorry. Carmen Ortiz. Frank Porter.
Aye.
Claudel Powell. Claudia, Powell. Thank you. Anthony Reed. Dr. Dina Robbins. Felix Roland. Phyllis.
Aye.
Thank you. I.C. May Thomas. Shirley Tripico. And Nicole Ward. Thank you.
Okay. So, how many ayes do we have, Madam Secretary? You can still count that up, okay. Okay, 24 ayes and 0 nays, and a couple of extensions to the motion passes. With that being said, board members, again, we have a special guest. And for those of you that stayed, again, thank you very, very much. You know, again, we didn't expect things to, you know, sometimes things happen where there are modifications to the agenda. And so, again, I want to apologize to Ms. Spencer, because under no circumstances did I ever think that she would be speaking this late. But she has an excellent presentation for us. And so with that being said, let me just introduce Ms. Spencer ever so briefly. So I've known Ms. Spencer for a number of years, as well as some of you that is here on this particular board. And so Ms. Spencer now works with the Bronx Community Health Network. And so with that being said, that's a network that is designed to not only provide physicians, but to help the Bronx really get access to quality health care and get access to resources and materials that we need for our edification, so that we can be a healthier population. So with that being said, I want to turn this over to Ms. Spencer and her presentation. Again, let me just, on behalf of the board, again, just apologize for the length of time that it took to get to you again. So, but I look forward to your presentation. I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to hearing it.
It's on? Oh, it's much better. My name is Paulette Spencer, and I work with the Bronx Community Health Network, and my work focuses on community engagement and policy analysis, and I'm in charge of a program that's a national research program with the title All of Us. And it's a part of what was called a precision medicine initiative under Barack Obama's administration. And the aim is to look at clinical research and include people who are underrepresented in research, because we know that medications that are created are normally created with someone else as the model, but usually not the communities that need the medications the most. And so there's an effort underway to change that paradigm, and that is what this program is about. So I'm going to give you a bit of a presentation on what we're doing at Bronx Community Health Network, outreach efforts that I'm going to be making throughout the next 8 months to actually create less of a gap between medical providers and community residents. There's going to be a series of teach-ins that I am creating, where I have a team of physicians who are medical professors, community-based organizations that actually scrutinize clinical research before it gets out into the community, and sort of to create discussion spaces around the Bronx where we can talk about the issue of communities of color and the legacy of medical experimentation. What the history is, what the experiences have been. There are people who have participated in medical studies that have had very good experiences. There are people who want to learn more, and I think that I want to create an environment where we can actually have an honest discussion about that with medical personnel in the room. So on that note, this is the project. So the sponsor for this project is the National Institutes for Health. And the aim for them is to gather data from 1 million or more people living in the United States to accelerate research and improve health. What makes this, I think, very innovative is that it focuses not only on, let's say, what's in your medical record or your demographics per se, but it looks at your lifestyle, your socioeconomics, your environment, biology, or what we call in public health, the social determinants of health. So we know that medicine and your medical conditions are influenced by many things that are non-medical in nature, such as the quality of your shelter, the quality of your nutrition, the quality of your social network. And so this effort is, as I mentioned, a part of the precision medicine, or what they call individualized prevention, treatment, and care for all of us. So the kind of questions that this resource may help answer pertain to how, for instance, can we prevent the chronic pain that affects more than 100 million people across the US each year? How can we develop better pain medicines that aren't addictive? Or slow or even stop different kinds of dementia? Or drive local disparities, interventions that work sustainably. And I would add there are conditions that really are primarily found with certain communities, such as lupus, which we know that affects predominantly women of color. There are issues where we see things such as leukemia, where we know that in many cases they're men of color. But the medications that are created are generally based on the model of the middle-aged white male. So this effort is, as I mentioned, to change that. So some of the innovative aspects of the All of Us project, as I mentioned earlier, is that they want to have a scale of about 1 million people in the database to really offer a full, diversified database. So the future clinicians, future people who are just doing research can either look at the patterns that we see at one point in time, or actually look at patterns going forward. And this is not just about illness, this is also about what people do right. So if you see patterns where you have data on how a person eats, and you notice that people who tend to eat fruits and vegetables may have lower incidences of certain illnesses, there's a way of really understanding that there's a pattern, that they may be able to develop a sense of causality between the data they have and the outcomes. We focus also on the fact that it's an open resource for all. It's open to the public and all researchers. So what they're doing is they're creating a database that has sort of 2 tiers. There's data that will be presented to the public, which is aggregated data. So it's data that is presented as like clumps of data. So you won't be able to point to an individual. You'd be able to point, let's say, to a demographic, to a part of the country, but you wouldn't be able to find out for a person's particular information. And I should say all of the data that's collected is de-identified, so it's completely anonymous. The second part of this data is for clinicians, and they have to go through a particularly rigorous screening process before they're allowed to have access to the data. That's disaggregated data, so they would be able to sort of drill down to the community level, although the names of the individuals whose data they're looking at would be not included in the research. I've been understanding or listening to concerns from the community about the security of the data, what the data would be used for, given the history of how data has been used to exploit people or to manipulate people, to say rotten things about people. And so I've been in touch with the national office, government office, to ask them specifically exactly what the screening process would be for the researchers and how they would address the likelihood or possibility of having data that's used to harm people. And I would say they were very forthcoming in their response. They take it very seriously, and they have a panel of specialists that reviews every proposal that comes to them from clinicians. And if they approve the proposal, they put that online for everyone to read. And their criteria is that the research proposal cannot cause any stigma, and it cannot damage any population that's involved in the research. And they check on the research that's being done on a regular basis, and if they feel that any of the promises of the researcher have been broken, and if they're treading on the ice in terms of the ethics or doing harm to the population, they can actually withdraw the research. So they can stop it. So I thought that that was a very important piece, because this is something that I understand from the community is of greater concern. So what is the promise for participants? It's an opportunity to fight disease and improve the health of future generations, to learn about your own health, to access your own data, to ensure that your community is included, to learn about additional research opportunities, and to meet others like you. I think it's very important also to realize is that it's for you and the people who come after you. Because if they keep to the standards in terms of reviewing and making sure that there's an integrity to the research that they approve, I think it has the potential to make a difference. And I can say I've signed up for it, and I wanted to see what the process is so that I can explain it to other people. So the next piece is really what is the promise for researchers. So for researchers, it saves time and resources. It accelerates the research breakthroughs. The database will offer a rich resource for data. They'll have a diverse cohort of participants. And essentially, they will have people who are engaged in, who are a group of engaged participants who may be eager to participate in more studies. One aspect of this that I think is a very good one is that they give you access to your own data online. So you can see exactly what's being said about you. In addition to that, you get to choose what pieces of information you want them to have. So they may want to, let's say, have your electronic health record. You can say no to that, but answer studies or surveys that they have and still be included in the study. You can, they may want you to have biospecimens given, saliva, urine. You can say no to that and still be part of the study. So you choose the degree to which you want to participate. So the question is here also, what is the promise for providers? Over time, increased scientific evidence and improved guidelines, better understanding of the impact of environment and lifestyle factors on health, more diverse populations in terms of the power of the data and the ability to make correlations and findings, earlier detection for conditions, and the ability to share electronic health records with other providers and patients. And most importantly, to help address health disparities, increase patient engagement, and understand the usefulness of consumer health devices and apps. So the way they've designed this is so that there are, I guess you can see 5 different ways that you can participate. As I mentioned, you can choose which ones you want to work with and which ones you'd rather not, and still be part of this program. This is designed to be, as I mentioned, it's called a longitudinal program, which means that they hope that you're part of it for quite a few years so they can actually measure change over time. And they're really looking at patterns and what influences your health. And at the end of the day, they want to know why certain people have certain diseases and other people do not. And tailor the medications or the interventions that they're going to be suggesting at the medical level so that it suits you and it's not really meant for someone else, so that it's more effective. So I'm going to be, I rushed through this a bit, but I'm going to be breaking this down more over the next few months to give you a better sense of what this is about, the benefits, the risks and the benefits, because there are issues always with confidentiality, with transparency, and at my end, the more I hear what issues there are in terms of confidence in the security of this arrangement, the more I go back to the actual grantors and I ask them questions. Lastly, one of the things that I've understood, which is where I'm going to start when I move on, is knowing that not many people know in the community know what clinical trials are or medical studies. And people don't realize that they're not necessarily all based on pharmaceuticals. You can have clinical trials that are based on just observing how, for instance, someone sleeps. They can be approached sleep apnea and see whether or not there's a correlation between not getting good night's sleep, being slightly overweight, or cardiovascular disease. So there are many ways of understanding the way clinical trials work. And what I hope to address is exactly the whole process, how, for instance, how medications get made. And it's not that you're the first living creature to have a medication or to be given a medication. There's a whole process before it comes to humans. And when we're looking at the issue of, for instance, the Tuskegee experiments, which we all know very well, one aspect of clinical studies and medical studies that I realize people may be unclear in that is that when you go through certain phases, you're either going to be given the new drug or the new intervention, or you're going to be given the standard. It's not as if you're going to be given nothing, as we know with the syphilis study. So things have changed, and there are mechanisms in place from a legal standpoint, as well as the way that research has evolved, that is designed to prevent some of what happened in the past from happening again. So as we move forward, I hope that I'll be able to give you more information. I have a team of physicians who are working with me, who are going to be coming out to communities throughout the Bronx to give information, to have teach-ins, to talk about medical issues that affect Bronx communities, challenges in treating them, and the importance of participating in medical studies so that we can find solutions. And I'm going to be doing that from February through August. And my first community that I'm focusing on is this one. So I'm hoping that your board, as well as possibly St. Luke's Church, will be sort of my focal points for those teach-ins with medical professors, as well as community-based organizations that scrutinize clinical trials. That's it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Spencer. Thank you so much. Wait, Ms. Spencer, wait. So, are there any board members with any questions for Ms. Spencer? Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Spencer. What's your title?
I'm just Paulette Spencer.
Just
I'm not
Paulette.
doctor,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. What I'd like to know, who will be keeping the records of the after you do all of this research? Who is
Well,
responsible?
there's a database at Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. There's also the Mayo Clinic that's involved, where they have the biobank for biospecimens. The survey, I believe, it will probably be at there's a third university that would be keeping the surveys. So it's actually spread out amongst different institutions. But the data itself is de-identified. The work that we're doing is primarily through patients of Montefiore or Bronx Community Health Network. We're linked as organizations. And Montefiore Hospital would be de-identifying the data. So any information that's sent to the national office or any of those institutions will not have your name, address, or anything that would identify you on it. Only Monty would know who you are.
Sounds exciting.
Any other questions? So let me say this. Let me say why Ms. Spencer's work is exciting. First of all, let me apologize that we only have one TV in the back that you have to look in the back. But as you heard our district manager says that in the coming months, hopefully we will have monitors so you can see it in the front. So let me apologize for that. But here's why Mrs. Spencer's work and her team's work is so exciting. Just imagine that you have hypertension. Just imagine that you have diabetes and you could have research that targets medicine just for you, just on your genotype and just on your phenotype, okay? On your genotype and your phenotype, you could have medicines that can be used to help cure you. Because for instance, people of African descent, we suffer from glaucoma. People of Caucasian descent, for instance, suffer from macular degeneration. Well, it's almost the same disease, but a different mechanism, right? So to Ms. Spencer's point, if you have the technology or if you participate in these clinical trials, these researchers can develop targets just for you that may not work in anybody else. So that's why this is something that you need to participate in. Let me ask you this, Ms. Spencer, one question before I move on. Do you get paid for participating in these trials?
There's a $25 incentive for signing up and signing the the consent forms, yeah, for registering and signing the consent forms. Yeah.
Okay, so you get money for this, is what you're saying. Okay, what about during the course of the trial? Does a PI give the patients any monies for participating in the trials?
Not at this point in time.
Not at this point. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Okay, Ms. Lanzone, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to confirm that we're going to have our first meeting with the Health and Human Services Committee. It's Thursday, the next Thursday, February 13th, 7:30.
Okay.
And we'll have it here. So if anybody wants to come, we're more than welcome.
And
we're also having a meeting prior to that on the 13th about rat control because we've had some issues with rats. We want to see where we are and how to protect ourselves. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lanzano. And again, thank you, Ms. Spencer, because your work is outstanding. And so let me just say that, so Ms. Spencer will be coming in a series. So she'll be coming back because a lot of the work that she said, she didn't get to do all of it, but she's going to come back and, excuse me, go into a little bit more detail. And then again, she's going to go into explicit detail in those health committee meetings. So I invite you, board members, as well as you, the general public, to attend. So thanks again, Ms. Spencer.
Thank you.
Okay, there, Ms. Green.
It depends on the pace in which it's developed and what they find. I don't think there's a particular timeline. For this project, they want to look at people over a 10-year period. But in terms of the researchers, I don't think they can actually predict who's going to want to research what and when. I know that part of the inspiration for this program came from the person who was directing the program, who had, I think it was an illness that had to do with his pancreas, and he had the first-hand experience of the doctors analyzing doing a genetic analysis of him, and actually coming up with medications that they realized would only work on him. So I would say yes, this has been done, but in terms of the more widespread trend, that I can't answer. But I know that this program was started in part because of the experience that he had with his life being saved after they actually did an analysis of his whole genotype and found out what medications would be working for him that hadn't been before.
Oh, okay, so we have one more statement and then we're gonna wrap this up. So, Dr. Rob, yeah, because we need to wrap up the meeting. So it's gotten away from us. So, Dr. Rob.
Yeah, I think that the work that you're doing, and this is very important, but we must keep in mind that, especially when it comes down to providing the biosamples, remember the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks, where they took her cancer cells, and there was a whole thing where they've used her specimens all over the world, and her family, it hasn't made a dime, but a lot of money have been made through the pharmaceuticals. So we must stay ever vigilant when it comes down to things like that.
Right, and again, I think, and that's why, this discussion, we're going to take place in the Health Committee, and, we can go into a lot more details. So with that being said, board members and residents, I had no idea that the DA was coming. I had no idea that Councilman Cohen was coming, and I had no idea that they would take up a significant amount of time. So with that being said, the hour is late, and so, again, I'm going to table my discussion until next month. All right, even though it's extremely important, we need to table. So I'm just going to say this as far as old business and new business. We're going to table quite a bit of this. We need to revisit the committee structure. And I sent out notices via, Ursula and our district manager. If your name is on the back page, that's problematic. Okay, that means either one or two things. Either your committee chair didn't get back to me, or you're not on any committees at all. So I'm going to invite you to get with me, because one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to revise the committee structure. And again, I'm going to table the discussion on that, as well as table the discussion to reduce the number of standing committees as well. And so I'll be communicating that via email. I do just want to say this. Two things. A, there's going to be an executive committee meeting on the third Monday in February, so that's going to be February the 17th, right? We're going to have an executive committee meeting, all right? Executive committee meeting, so that's all the officers and all the committee chairs, all right? So we will have a meeting on Monday, February the 17th. The next thing I want to say is also, all of you are here at this late hour, and I just want to applaud you. But I just want to say one thing right now that I've noticed, and I just want to say this. 25% of our board is consistently absent. 25%, right? So if we want to change any bylaws or anything like that, we can't get anything done, because it seems like, to me, people just don't give a damn about coming. So unlike other community boards, why do you think we have, and I was going to talk about this tonight, why do you think we have all these developers coming here? Okay, so that's something that we need to talk about. So I'm going to table 501c3. One thing I do want to discuss is, based on what happened here tonight, not knowing if an elected official is going to come and take a nice amount of time, is that we think about moving the meeting times up to 7 o'clock instead of 7:30. So I think that if we move it up to 7 o'clock, then that would be better for us, because if we have an unannounced guest like we did tonight, then that will still allow us time to take care of our business. So we're going to talk about that in executive committee and bring that to a vote next month, that we move the meeting up to 7 o'clock. And I think that would be better for everybody involved. Okay? With that being said, just a couple of announcements. Yeah.
up to even 6:30?
That's something that we can discuss in executive committee, Mrs. Bond. So, moving the meeting to, between 7 o'clock and 6:30, but I think 7:30, it's kind of pushing it, especially if you have guests that come in and, they're verbose, because we had that back in November as well. We had guests that are a little bit verbose, and then before you know it, critical time is moving away.
Point of order. With regards to moving up the meeting, just be advised, when we have hearings, those hearings take place a half an hour before the meetings, which means this could be a 5:30, 6 o'clock hearing before a meeting. So please take that into consideration. All right.
And again, you're right, Mr. Hall, but again, we'll talk about that in executive committee. So I think that, and then we'll bring a motion to the board. So just a few announcements that I need to make on new business. Community board training is being offered by the Department of City Planning. Excuse me. I may have to take you up on that, Ms. Johnson. But Department of City Planning, and that's going to take place on Monday. Now, all of you should have gotten a notice about that. And when it comes to city planning, that is a very important agency, because all these rezoning and all these developers that are coming here, it's because of them. Right? So they're offering a training, and like I said, I've signed up for it, and hopefully board members, you have too. And you heard Mr. Lagara said, don't worry about it if you have not signed up for it, but that's at 463 East 149th Street on the second floor at the Metropolitan Community College, and that's from 6:30 to 9 o'clock. Likewise, the 501c3 training is also tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Ostos Community College, and I know that Mr. Roldan was going to talk about that. But again, as I said, the nonprofit training, and hopefully, like I said, I know Ms. Benitez was concerned about that as well, so hopefully we can get that in. Last but not least, new board members. I'm going to talk about the resource guide later, but new board members. What normally happens here at Community Board 12 is that new board members are thrown into the fire and really are not given any mentoring or any instructions as to how we proceed and what should happen. So what I'm proposing is any new board member after that was brought in either in 2018 or 2019, meet with me after this meeting, and so that we could talk about, because I'm going to mentor you and hopefully get some mentors from the board that have been here a while and mentor you. I know Ms. Bersati mentioned that we need a welcome kit, and I'm in agreement with that. So I think that, not only mentoring, but a welcome kit for the newer board members that came in, as I said, 2018 and 2019, to be mentored by seasoned board members. I think that will help you in the flow as well. With that being said, and here's why that really bothers me, why I'm proposing that. Because at the Christmas party, we had somebody that's been on the board for 5 years, and another board member said, I have no idea who you are. That person, now if you were in the room, you know what I'm talking about. You're shaking your head because you were there, Ms. Benitez. But if you were in the room, you were there too. So a board member that's been on the board for 5 years, another board member didn't know who they were. That's ridiculous. So that's something that we need to rectify. So with that being said, are there any announcements for the good and welfare before we adjourn?
I just have two.
You have two?
Yeah.
We have some announcements.
Just briefly, good evening. I am the president of the Bronx branch of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. It was formed by Dr. Carter G. Woodson 105 years ago. This organization started African American History Month. We'll be having our African American History Month program February 1st, and that will be at the United Christian Baptist Church, located at 713 East 222nd Street, and all are welcome. It's free, and you can give a donation to the organization if you would like. Lastly, I want you to remember these numbers. 8531. Can you repeat that?
8531.
And now put an A in front of it. A 8531. Okay. There is a bill up in State We need you to gotten it up in Albany. Carl Hasty and Jamal Bailey are supporting this bill. We're asking each and every one of you to please remember what number? 8531. Call your assembly person, call your councilman, call your senator. We want what? 8531. 8, remember there's an A in front of it.
Thank you, Dr. Dina.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to share very quickly that there's a job opportunity in that New York State court officers exam just came out. That's a great opportunity for anyone you know that may be looking. They'd have to apply for the exam, but that's one thing I wanted to share. And also that Mount Sinai has a Med Start Surgery Day Camp program. It's for middle school students. The application deadline is actually the 26th, which is this weekend. And it's a one-day program on February 8th from 9 to 3 for the children to have opportunity to actually see and learn more about the medical and surgical field. So if you want that information, I can provide it to you after. Yes, I intend to.
Okay, so before we adjourn, one final announcement, point of personal privilege. I just want to announce that my fraternity brothers, the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, we have our own Carter G. Woodson program that's actually taking place in City Hall. So it's taking place in City Hall on Friday, February the 7th. And of course, the theme is going to be interactions with law enforcement and the community. And of course, yours truly will be the moderator, but I invite you to come out. Of course, it's free. Again, that's Friday, February the 7th, starting at 6 o'clock p.m. So I'm hoping that, you know, you come, board members, and everybody else come and with the Brothers of Omega Psi Phi as we talk about bail reform and other sorts of legislation. This is before the caucus weekend. The caucus weekend is the weekend after that. Okay? So with that being said, let me get a motion from the floor to adjourn. Any other seconds?
So moved.
So moved. The meeting's ended.